Hi, my name is Patrice Berry. First, thank you for the opportunity. And I think this is the first time for the opportunity to speak publicly about why I'm interested in school board. Um, Growing up, my mother didn't really give my siblings and me the option of going to college. We kind of just had to go. And I think a lot of why I'm running for school board is wrapped up into how my mom sort of raised us. Um, After all four of us, me and my siblings went through college, my mom finally graduated from college at the age of 52. And as a preview of, how she raised us, my mom went on to get a master's degree and is now getting her PhD. She has always been pretty ruthless about education. We even watched her take classes at a local community college growing up. Um, and I think for her and for me now, education really means liberation, and community was always important to us as well. Our home was always filled with community, even when we were struggling. And so the run for school board and the fight for a more liberatory system of education, system of public education specifically, and in being in service to my community, I think it's a part of my DNA. And I was actually quite ashamed growing up by how hard we had to fight for um, things that I think now I understand are pretty basic within the school system. A class that challenged me, a teacher who, gave me more work and more responsibility instead of putting me in the corner of a classroom because I talked too much. My mother was constantly advocating for me and even other kids in our school. And I think the effort we spend fighting through these systems, um, I think it cost us a lot more than we often can afford. And I'm aware that not everyone has someone fighting for them, like my mom was fighting for me. And I believe at the same time that systems can change. So a lot of the work I do in my professional life is about systems change. And I've spent my entire life fighting so that every child can enjoy this liberatory power of education. And I really mean my whole life. And I don't think my run for school board is any different than what I've always been doing. And I've watched when I go to school board meetings, the conversations about school closures and literacy and yesterday's conversation about A through G. um, I think that we can work together. OEA, you know, the public charter schools. I think we can all work together to build something beautiful here in Oakland. I think that we have a common enemy, and it's these systems we've inherited. And I want to help redirect our focus, um, which I think some of our leadership has already begun to do. And I think more importantly, looking at the time because I'm 1 minute over. I just love Oakland, and um, my I love that my two children are Oakland natives, and I'm eager to build the education system that they deserve here.
Your next question is, as a board member, how will you improve academic outcomes for students?
Um, so I think I want to say one thing about like what I want to do and another about the way, and I think both of those are part of how we'll be able to make an impact together. So first, when I was at College Tech East Palo Alto, I was brought on to dramatically increase academic performance. And there was this perspective that the program was thriving in one sense, great relationships between educators and students, among students and families, but GPAs and test scores were still below standard. And ultimately, this laddered up to not enough students going to um, 4 year colleges, which was a significant part of the organization's mission. The challenge in East Palo Alto was very similar when I started working at a public high school called University City High School in Philadelphia 4 or 5 years before I moved to California. And when I was hired there, student performance was dragging in many of the key metrics as part of like a district pattern, really, which led to a lot of the schools in the district being taken over. And my job was to work with teachers and other colleagues across different functions to really turn around the school. And specifically, my role was to help cultivate a culture of college and career readiness. And in both of those environments, very different, one predominantly Latino, one predominantly Black, one here in California, the other on the East Coast, in both learning environments, my first job to sort of like fixing the situation was understanding it. And so I spent a lot of time listening and observing, no matter how much I thought I knew going in. And more than that, I think that I've made that a way of life. It's not just something I do at the beginning of a journey, it's an ongoing exercise. So I think my first commitment is really to it relates to what I mentioned earlier, the way that I work. My first commitment is showing up with real curiosity and a desire to learn. And um, I'm not seeing the time anymore. The
Oh no, sorry.
It's okay. Um,
Is that better?
okay. Yeah, thank you. Um, I think regarding what I want to do, I think there's a lot of work that has already been done and that will have already been done by the time I start if I were to win. And so I think another commitment I want to make is to take stock of the commitments that we've already made, from literacy to reparations, now A through G, develop a transparent system of accountability that allows us to make significant, meaningful progress on the things we've already promised that we would do. Um, but there are three things that are really important to me that I'll just name really quickly. I think literacy is really important. So ensuring that students are learning to read, using evidence-based, data-driven tools, giving teachers the space to really design their learning environments in a way that meets students where they are so that they can actually do that. College and career readiness, given my background, is also something that's really important to me. It doesn't begin in high school. I think every child should be introduced over and over and over again to college and careers early, and offered an opportunity to really internalize it and build identity around it. And it's not just some isolated project, college and career readiness, some standalone project. And then I also care very deeply about embedding community programs in schools so that students can get more than just an education. I was a teacher, and it's really hard when your teachers, your students are coming in with stuff, and you don't have the space, or the time, or even the leadership support to really address those needs. And the more we can integrate into the way we do school, the realities of our students, I think the better off everyone will be.
Thank you. What is your personal history with labor unions? And as a board member, how will you engage with union contract negotiations and with work actions such as strikes?
My personal history with labor unions generally rests in my professional life, which is deeply personal to me. I worked with teachers, a teachers union in Philly when we were fighting school closures. I work with labor in the poverty abolition work that I do in my day job. I supported the fight to increase minimum wage for fast food workers. I'll be at the Capitol next week with SEIU for a select committee hearing on poverty and economic inclusion. I've also engaged with labor unions in some of the workforce development work that I've been a part of over the years, particularly around CTE and apprenticeship programs. Regarding actions like strikes, I do want to be the kind of colleague to unions that listens and focuses on solutions. I am aware that when there is something like a strike, there's like an inadvertent consequence that a student might not be in a classroom getting what they need. And I think that there's a way that we can protect students and teachers, and fight for teachers and students at the same time. And I think a lot of what I want to do as a board member is to be a collaborative partner, and to develop sort of like a relationship that's grounded in transparency and candor and regular communication where there are fewer surprises in sort of the advocacy work that we're doing.
Thank you. Your next question is, what role should unions play in creating district policy? As a board member, how would you maintain a collaborative relationship with OEA and other unions?
I'm eager, I think, to hear the concerns and ideas um, and opportunities that unions have for how we might improve education in Oakland, especially in ways that address how we prepare students for life beyond high school. There's a clear relationship there. I believe if you have a stake in education, you have a voice, and I have a ton of curiosity about what people care about. And I would love a relationship with OEA and other unions that is grounded, like I said earlier, in principles like open communication, transparency, and candor. And I would like it to be true that I can work with OEA in some sort of cross-sector collaborative change effort that centers those directly impacted, including our educators, but also our students and their caregivers, and allows us to sort of honor our respective vantage points while working toward a shared mission. And I think we can actually operationalize that. I imagine that the range of possibility, at least to start, would include meeting regularly. I'm really interested in relationship building at this point.
Thank you. Your next question is long, so it's in the chat for you. Will you commit to rejecting donations, endorsements, and support from privatization-linked organizations such as Families in Action and the California Charter School Association, for-profit corporate entities, police or prison unions, or Israeli lobbying groups? And will you publicly request that any of these groups cease campaign activities such as mailers and canvassing on your behalf?
Yeah, I think broadly or generally, I'm committed to rejecting donations and endorsements from entities with whom I do not share values or beliefs. Um, I think, and I'm learning this, like campaigning and campaign finance, there's just some really problematic systemic issues. Um, but I'm very committed to like following my heart and moving in alignment with my values. I will say, in the spirit of making progress, I would like to have an open line of communication with communities I'm not a part of and organizations that oppose my beliefs, because I don't see how I can get anything done if I'm only working with people with whom I agree. And it seems unrealistic and feels inauthentic for me to suggest I would never take meetings and seek to find common ground with different groups of people.
Thank you. Your next question is, if you are responsible for hiring a new superintendent, what qualities would you look for in candidates? What should the relationship be between the board and the superintendent?
I've had the opportunity to watch a few superintendents in my tenure as an educator, a few here in Oakland, um, the on the peninsula where I worked for College Track East Palo Alto, in Maryland, DC. And there are a few things that I respect most that I think Oakland needs to maintain and needs to create in leadership. And I think someone like Dr. Johnson Trammell, who is rooted here and in it for the long haul, is really helpful, because I think we need consistency and we need time to see a vision through. I think turnover is harmful. Um, I think finding a leader who is steady, um, firm about a core set of values and very clear about them, effective at working with different people, though that's really important. And I mean, I think our superintendent should be an experienced educator. I love that about our current superintendent. They should know education, they should have been in the trenches, and they should understand how to navigate, because it's a core part of their job, conversations with school leaders and educators, with staff, with community members, people who all have a stake in education. and perhaps even someone who has experience designing and implementing programs, who has had to use data to ask tough questions and to learn and make changes, and track growth. Um, I think the relationship between the board and the superintendent, I think I've said this a few times, should be collaborative. If the superintendent is the chief executive, they should be experienced managing people and managing big, tough problems. And I really think that it's the board's responsibility to really channel community, and to focus on process and engagement, as decisions are being made throughout the year.
Thank you. Do you commit to voting against any school closures and special education program closures? And other than closures, what are some specific ways that you can respond to possible funding shortfalls in the budget?
So first, I know firsthand what school closures mean. I know what it means to pour love into a space and a community and have someone who's not a part of that community, people who don't even understand how special it is, tear it down. Um, and I even think if you go on my X account, there's like a picture on my profile, and I'm pretty sure, because I'm not on there very often, that's a picture of me and my students in Philly the night that we showed up to City Hall to fight a school closure. And we were truly organized, but in the end, no matter how loud we were and how many people we turned out, the bulldozer literally came in, and not only did they shut down our school, but they wiped the school building out. And I think that lot is now housing for college students. Um, and then when I was at that school, it was University City High School, I came in with a principal who was able to, like, because of that district takeover I spoke about earlier, pick teachers and build a new program. And we really did create something special. And so, it hurts that the school doesn't exist anymore. And I talk to students, all the time, often, you know, about what that community felt like for us and how we still hold on to it. And so I think that I'm sure that the board at that time felt like that was a decision that they needed to make. Our school was shrinking. There was underutilized space in the building. I even think that there was, like asbestos in the walls. Um, and I'm sure the decision to close the school felt very rational. I just also believe that we need to understand that on the other side of these completely rational decisions, that there are, human lives, and human experiences, and that has to be part of the math. you know um, I think balancing the budget, I know I'm at time of a fiscally challenged district, is not easy, and difficult decisions need to be made. That is a fact, but I don't take lightly the prospect that one of the losses might be a whole entire learning community. And I think it's something to avoid however possible. And it's not at all something to do without deeply engaging and authentically engaging with students and families. I'm even of the mind that, it might even be helpful to move away from a conversation about whether we're closing schools or protecting them. I kind of feel like that's sometimes not the right conversation. I think we can imagine the school district we want and build that. And um, yeah, I forget the second part of the question. If I have time, look at your chat. About budget shortfalls, I do believe that there's an opportunity for us to think about revenues. Even when I think about the state budget, there are a lot of programs, safety net programs, especially, that are being slashed. And I feel like there's a lot of more attention paid to what we can cut, and there needs to be far more attention paid to where we can generate more revenue.
Thank you. What do you believe the future should look like for charter schools in Oakland? Specifically, what are your thoughts on extending property leases, sharing space on OUSD campuses through Prop 39, and transitioning charter schools to district-run schools?
I imagine a future for Oakland schools where every child receives a quality education regardless of the school type. I don't believe that charter schools are the enemy of public education. I'm part of a legacy of Black people who create and innovate and build, not just as a form of artistic freedom, but also because we've had to survive. And I would never want to hinder the possibility that we could build something for our children because we felt like we needed to. Um, and I don't think that, charter schools are part of the set of systemic and structural problems that make it hard for our district to better serve students. But I do think that there's a relationship that requires attention and care. But there are laws that, we have to follow. And if we don't like the laws, like Prop 39, we should change them. But what Prop 39, I think, looks like, and I'm not expert in this, but I think it looks like in our day to day, I don't think it means the same thing to Oakland today that it meant 5 or 10 years ago, where space was much more impacted. And perhaps, we'll see some of this play out now that space looks like what it looks like now. I even heard that a new charter school site became vacant yesterday. But I think overall, I think I still have a lot to learn about this particular area of the board's work.
Thank you. And your last question is just a chance to add any closing remarks if you'd like to.
I just want to say that I'm excited about the prospect, not just of running for school board, but in the process to build a deeper understanding of the unique context of Oakland schools, even broader than I've been able to understand it working in Oakland, and to build relationships and hopefully begin to build bridges where I think that there's opportunity to do a lot more collaboratively.